100 episodes of TOT. That's a lot. So here's a special moment of reflection here in this season finale. Because I wasn't doing any acting, wasn't working on any scripts. I was doing absolutely nothing as it pertains to acting during my time working for Power 106. So by the time I came out of there in January of '07, I didn't have a resume. I was behind the 8 ball. I had no credits at all. Right now, you can go to my IMDb and you'll see the credits there that began to pick up to some extent. Funny enough, right after I came out of radio, that's when I got my very first speaking role in a movie called Color of the Cross Part 2, directed by John Claude Lamar. And I played one of the disciples, Simon. So that was sort of the indicator that, okay, you got to be in it for the long haul. It's 2007. You need to have some credits. You need to get some more connections. You need to get more on your resume. You need to get active, da 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 da. And then in comes the idea of getting on YouTube to sort of assist in that. Even though at the time when I first got on here, I was posting, but I wasn't posting a whole lot. Now, when you go to my channel, when you look at my older videos from like 2009, there's some from 2010. I took a lot of that stuff down, but kind of cheesy. I did a series called True TV, and that's when I started doing the Where I Grew Up and did some poetry in some of those. I did an episode with quotes or my thoughts, because you don't really quote yourself, but well, actually you can. Anyway, so YouTube was sort of a way to kind of just add on to what was going on. Did stand up in 2008 at the Comedy Store in Hollywood. I talked about that. So it was just sort of a way to, kind of get things going. And this was before YouTube really blew up. There was no monetization going on at that time. It really didn't start picking up until 2012, 2013. You started seeing podcasts and people making money off YouTube. And even at that point, I wasn't really diving in as much as I probably should have. I was so invested in the book of sultry that I was kind of blowing YouTube off. I guess I was frustrated because YouTube had restrictions in terms of being able to show partial nudity. And I went over to Vimeo and that whole thing. So it was really hit or miss. There was a lot of hit or miss, trial and error, and just trying to put pieces together. And so there it was. But that was the reason why I got on. And my aim was to be as original as possible, to kind of steer and create my own lane. If you look at my channel, can you really compare my stuff to anybody else? For those of you that have actually watched the things on my channel, when you really look at it, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? It's a challenge to be original, because the internet opens the floodgates and you see so much content from so many different sources. But I definitely pride myself on being among the original content creators. You don't see me putting up other people's material and reacting to it. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just not something that I want to do. If I'm going to create something, I'm going to do it from the ground floor. I'm going to come up with something that's a little different, something that's in my own lane, even if it's inspired by something else. Like the Book of Sultry technically is inspired by the movie Purple Rain, Miami Vice, and sensual expression and poetry. Inspired by those things, but it's in my own lane. Same thing. And then with the Strength Within series, and just things that are similar, but yet it's my own lane yet again. So I really wanted to do that. And unfortunately, the algorithm is not being very nice to me right now, but that's not going to stop me from creating. The remakes, the redos, that started to pick up in the 2010s. And I was like, okay, what's going on? I don't know if this is something that I want to be a part of anymore. Do I really want to do this? But then all of a sudden in 2015, momentum started to pick up for me, because I teamed up with a guy named Armin Silchkovic, very talented director. Met him at a writers group, the Rewrites group, thanks to a guy named Dave Rosenberg, associate of mine. And he introduced me to this group. I go and met Armin, and next thing you know, I'm playing roles in these independent movies and getting awards and nominated. And all kinds of really good stuff is starting to happen. And I'm like, okay, next step, representation. Next step, the Screen Actors Guild. This is all going on in my mind. But then I said, hold up. Hollywood. Hollywood is changing. Yeah, they're changing. They're not doing those recipes that made it what I found fascinating are being removed. It's not the industry that it was. Now, of course, show business has always been a part of it. That's always been there. But now you have political agendas. Now you have social justice. Now you have a quota. You have to have a certain amount of blacks, a certain amount of whites, a certain amount of Asians, a certain amount of this, certain amount, certain amount, certain amount. You have a checklist of all these things that have to be in play, regardless of the project that you're working on. Then they're not going to want to produce any of the things that I have. All these ideas that I have written down have very strong male characters. That's not what they're trying to produce. So they wouldn't greenlight any of this stuff that I have. And these are ideas that I've had since I was 20 years old. So is this industry something that will support? Does this serve me anymore? I have the talent, it's there. But does the industry serve me in terms of what I'm trying to create and the stamp that I'm trying to have in the world through artistic expression? These are the questions that were going on in my mind. So in 2018, I said, all right, I'll give it a 4-year push. Why not? I'll pretend like I'm going into college, give it a 4-year push. 2019 is the freshman year, and then 2020 is the sophomore year. Uh-oh, shutdowns. Now I'm reevaluating things even more because now I'm sitting at home, not going anywhere. Everything is shut down. So then here I was making the decision to give it a 4-year push, and then the shutdowns happen. Now I'm back to reevaluating why I want to do it. Okay. So then comes the idea of getting back more active on YouTube, which I have been a lot more active because up to that point I was posting, but I wasn't posting as much. In comes the Strength Within series. In comes T.O.T, right? In comes, more where I grew up slightly. So yeah, there was this push of independent content creation and what that can do. Now, of course, that means you're going to have to put in more work, even more than I'm doing right now. I'll get to that in a second. But it's this course correction. Here I am. It's the 4th year, 2022. Hollywood. What does that mean? Well, it means that I don't want to be a part of what they're pushing. That's what it means. They're not creating stuff that inspires me, not creating anything that really elevates and makes me motivated to want to be a part of what they're doing. So I guess that's no longer the target now, is it? Because technically I would probably end up being like a Morgan Freeman and have success at age 50 like he did, because I would be considered a late bloomer in terms of the Hollywood game. But the industry is no longer something that serves me. So then there you go. So here it is, year 4, course correction. Maybe that's my niche on the channel. Maybe I need to do more SexBot videos. But it's so funny how you create something and you don't know what's going to hit. And then all of a sudden, the one thing that you don't expect to generate attention generates attention. It's so strange because that video gets looked at every single day, has some pretty decent engagement for where I'm at in terms of subscribers and what have you. But man, really? So should I become the SexBot guru, or I don't know? And that's the reevaluation that I'm at right now, because I'm looking at my channel. I'm looking at the things that I have here, with the Where I Grew Up, Strength Within series, poetry, the T.O.Ts here now, 100th episode of that. And I got to sit back and kind of look at some things and see what it is that I want to create going forward. There's a lot of stuff for you to sink your teeth into, but again, that algorithm is not being very nice. I guess it is, you have to find your niche and stick to it. And then that's how the algorithm finds you, and then things get pumped out. You get more engagement and that sort of thing. It's a tricky thing. It's a very, very tricky thing. But once you figure it out, you take off. I haven't gone viral just yet. And not that that's the end all be all for me. You know what I mean? What I do is I give gems. That's what I do. In all interactions with people, lay a gem. I came up with that recently in a conversation. In all interactions with people, lay a gem. Um, so yeah, looking at the content, maybe you can give me some suggestions based on what's already on my channel. Because when I got on here, like I said, I was trying to be very original, have my own lane, and also looking at it as a diverse channel where you get a lot of different things rather than just one thing. But apparently, live streaming, podcasts seem to be the dominant thing on YouTube. Controversy is the dominant thing on YouTube, and I'm not controversial by no stretch of the imagination. So then, what is it? There's an idea that I have for my channel, and I'm actually working on that right now. And it's something that involves the ladies, and I'm working on it. Okay. I'm working on it. If I pull this off, this may be the thing. But then there's the sex bot conversation. So I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. But this has been a very interesting journey since 2020 in terms of attempting to be more active. Right now, I'm working a lot. So I'm trying to stack here and build up, and there's a course correction there in terms of work and that sort of thing. So we'll see how things unfold headed into 2023. But for those of you that have discovered me now, take a look, see what sticks. And if you have suggestions, definitely, I'm open to it. But it's a matter of finding what your niche is. Again, I pride myself on being as original as possible. Everybody's copying everybody else. I don't want to do that. So here we go. What's another one that I like? There's the Booker T. Washington quote where he says, "Excellence is to do a common thing in an uncommon way." I believe that's the quote, if I'm not mistaken. Doing a common thing in an uncommon way. So yet again, that also correlates to the idea of creating your own lane, being original, finding the thing that everybody else is doing and say, how would I do that? And that's basically been my recipe throughout my entire life. I look at what someone did. How would I do that? Going back to the card game that I was talking about in the other episode, when I was watching Poker After Dark, or looking at Prince and Purple Rain and Miami Vice and saying, ooh, I love that. Maybe if I took poetry and big breasts and threw it into a series, boom, the Book of Sultry. I don't know. It's you take pieces and you create your own lane. What's another really good one? Oh yeah, the Einstein one. Insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. That's a good one. I like that one. And then there's the Shakespeare ones. I'm not the biggest Shakespeare enthusiast. You're not going to find me quoting lines from Shakespeare, although I have done Shakespeare. In fact, the very first, well, not my first theater experience, but one of my earlier theatrical experience at age 11, Merchant of Venice, and played the Prince of Morocco. I was 11 years old. All that glitters is not gold. That's one of my favorites. The other one, All the World's a Stage. Yeah, I like that one a lot. I actually did Shakespeare last year, played Theseus in A Midsummer Night's Dream, had to memorize 20 pages of Shakespeare in a week. That was challenging, very challenging, because you got to get every single line right. That was a lot of fun. What's another really good set of quotes? Well, there's the ones that come from family. My grandmother specifically, "I can never hate a man." I love that. "I can never hate a man." She would say that all the time. And I'm glad she did. And I think and now I understand why she said it, because she didn't want me to hate my own existence, and also wanted me to realize that even though she may have made either bad choices or had some bad relationships that didn't pan out too well, she wasn't trying to dump that onto me. Because a lot of times the woman will dump her emotional trauma onto the kid, whatever took place in the relationships that failed. So "I can never hate a man." That was a big one. Then the other one was, oh yeah, she used to point to me just like this and say, "Don't you worry about me. You just do what you got to do." Ooh, yeah, that was a big one. The idea of doing what you got to do as a man and, handle your business. What's another one? My mother has a couple of ones like, "Don't limit yourself." Don't limit yourself. She used to tell me that all the time. "Use your eyes." That's a big one. Use your eyes. Now, if there's one thing that I know how to do is use my eyes. You're not going to know this. You're just looking at a screen. But I promise you, especially you ladies, I'm one who stands before you right now or sits before you on the screen right now. And I'll tell you this, in person, you cannot handle the eye contact from me. Absolutely not. I have become a master with this. Use your eyes. So much to the point that I wrote a poem about it. And there's a lot of good ones. And then there's some that I came up with on my own, like the one that I mentioned. Here's another one. When there is no reciprocity, my adoration has an expiration date. And that's the idea of, as it pertains to the interactions with women, when the energy is not returned, adoration cuts off. And there's a lot of guys that don't do that. They'll continue and continue and continue, even if there's no energy being exchanged. But I'm one who, I'll give you adoration, not generosity, adoration. I'll give you that. But when there's no reciprocity, cut off. Let's see. And then, the Book of Sultry one. Life without sensuality has no depth. That's one of the lines from one of my poems. There's actually an episode I did here on my channel where I go through a lot of different thoughts or quotes or whatever you want to call it, an entire episode of ones that I came up with, and I break them all down. So it's interesting that I'm having this episode here. But, I think about these a lot. They really motivate me to continue to push forward in all things that I do, regardless of what people's opinions are, regardless of what people's thoughts are. You continue to push, you continue to believe in what you're doing, you engage new habits, you're not afraid to change your course. You recognize that maybe certain decisions didn't work for you, and then you make some new decisions, you create new realities, and you push forward with that. And so that pretty much is where I'm at right now.